Mark, I want to ask you about two of the rising freshmen, Ivy and Kennard. How important was it for them to get all those meaningful reps last year? And do you see a difference in them this spring?
Yes, that experience is something that you can't duplicate, and they have gotten off to a really good start here in the spring, but still freshmen, still got a lot of good, big things, big strides to make to be able to have an even better impact this season.
Next question comes from Kelly Quinlan from Rivals.
It's been sort of impressive, Marco, how you guys have developed depth so quickly at this position with guys like Jordan and Ivan Kennard and then the guys like Sylvain and Antonius and all that. Kind of how do you balance the competition in that room with those guys you have a mixture of young guys who are probably hungry and then these sort of quasi-veterans that have been with you guys for the first few years?
Well, it's just a matter we stress the fundamentals and also being responsible and even things off the field. That's the competition, to be not just better football players, but even better young men. Be able to be trusted when we are put out there on the field. And so whether it's an older guy like Antonius or a young guy like Kyle Kennard, the standard is the standard. And if you're mature enough to handle it and do those things, then you'll play. If not, then you'll probably be watching.
Next question comes from Ken Segura from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution.
Marco, I was curious about Antonius. I was glad to see him out there, and kind of what are you seeing out of him? Not just, I guess, from a football perspective, but just obviously from a just his well-being overall.
Well, taking that time there during the season where he opted to take those other games off, man, that was the question for a lot of us to see how he was going to come back, and he's been a model citizen since he's been back. He's definitely the adult in the room. His experience and tenure shows. Now we just that's off the field. On the field, we still have some fundamental things to continue to work on. That's the beauty of having the spring football.
Next question comes from Jeff Schultz from The Athletic.
Hey, Marco, you alluded to this a little bit earlier, but can you just sort of address the difficulty of trying to, over the last couple of years, trying to build up the defensive line, build up a mindset, build a pass rush, and, sort of where you came from and the process, how difficult that has been to go through?
Well, the biggest thing is that there's not a lot of playing experience. Here now, going into this third season, guys like Jordan Dominic, a lot of guys on the defensive line like Jaquan Griffin, Dijmon Brooks, even TK Jametz, even though they didn't play this year, these guys, they hadn't played before we got here. So it's just a matter of getting the play time, and that experience, because the reps are what build the player, seeing something over and over and over again and being able to coach it on how to react. And it wouldn't have been until we had an opportunity to get out there for those guys to play that they would have been able to get better. So having that experience to play has been the thing that's allowed them to get better, for us to have something to coach them up on. So the experience of playing, I think, has been the biggest key.
And I asked this earlier, but I mean, we're only in spring, obviously, but have you seen anybody who's really sort of stood out that can be, you think can be an impact player in the fall?
I'm sorry, you had cut out a couple of times. I didn't hear everything you said.
That's okay. I understand we're only in spring ball, but can you just has anybody really sort of stood out in terms of somebody who you think will be an impact player in the fall?
I think they've all they've been working really, really hard. Jordan Dominic continues to be pretty consistent. He made some big plays during the course of the season, but made mistakes at key moments. But here during the spring, he's minimized, doesn't make many mistakes like before. Kyle, and even the addition of Kevin Harris, he's been looking pretty good. Antonius has been very, very consistent. I would say as an entire group, they've all been making strides and looking for because of the competition. They've all answered the bell to come out and perform well each and every day we're out at practice.
Thanks.
Got time for a couple more for Coach Coleman. We'll take one from Kelly Quinlan.
Coach, I was just curious, with Sylvain, he's had 2 years in a row that have not ended the way he wanted to and been banged up. Kind of how do you approach, keeping his mind in a good place and kind of helping him along when maybe he can't go 100% and that kind of thing?
Well, he's not practicing right now, but he's working really, really hard out there. I think the beauty of it is that, Sylvain is a mature young man. I mean, you figure he came all the way from Belgium, and he's here alone. That alone says a lot about the young man to be able to handle that. And, so fortunately, he has a coach that's got a little experience and knows what it's like to play, get injured, and have to still stay in it. So he's done a really good job of keeping his focus, being in the meetings. Then, hopefully in the summer when he's able to get back, we'll see how much attention he was actually paying when we get out there on the field.
And a final question for Coach Coleman comes from Ken Segura.
I want to ask you more about Antonius. I'm curious, just how did you feel like he played in the snaps that he had, and then, how good can he be, you think, with this one more year?
You mean here in spring or during the season last year?
I'm sorry, during the season last year.
I thought he did pretty well. I mean, because he had to miss, I think, a couple of games early. It was up and down. It was inconsistent, but I think here in the spring he's shown more consistency. It was a crazy year last year for everybody, and that COVID just really disrupted the situation for the entire team. And like I said, no one was excluded from it, including him. But I think here since the start of spring, we've seen a lot more consistency.